Home Sweet Home is a fucking classic.
A ballad? That's you want to talk about a hard rock band, and the first thing you're going to point out is a ballad. No, sorry. Fail.
Sorry, I mean, it just, Too Fast for Love wasn't bad.
I mean, Vince Neil is a front man? Come on, man. No. This is Industry Relations, a podcast at the intersection of real estate and technology from an insider's perspective. Sponsored by Cotality. Stay tuned to learn more with Rob Hahn and Greg Robertson.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of Industry Relations with Rob and Greg. This is your host, the notorious Rob, and as always, my amazing co-host, the fabulous Greg Robertson, everybody.
Hola, Rob.
Hola. I really want to know, seriously, listeners, do you prefer the more grown-up, non-crazy intro, or do you prefer the wacky, crazy intro?
We're making a little different thing. So the last, I don't know if anybody caught, if you watch on YouTube, is the most, well, I guess you can hear it also, but we're doing a little format changing. This is based upon my son's conversations with your son, Eli, on where the ad placement should be and how we start the YouTube out or the podcast out. So we'll see if those things pay off in sort of new engagement or everything else. And now today you're now standing.
I am standing. Yes, because I noticed that you stand, and I thought maybe I should as well.
I was just always worried I'd be just kind of slip back into my seat and look like a schlub. So I was like, I think it's better for me to kind of stand up and have it. Although, as we've talked about before, people get mad at me when I sway around because, especially on the live one, I guess I'm making people nauseous by my swaying.
Right. So what you're saying is you'd rather I look like a shrub all the time as I was sitting.
Well, you don't look like one. I was concerned that I might look like one. So,
but I said at the intro this is a very special episode because we made an executive decision during our pre-show because our pre-show planning is so lengthy and so time consuming.
In depth, yeah.
That we're frankly a little bit tired of all the war going on in real estate because there's an actual war that we might be going into. I think we decided, once in a while, I think we've done it before as well, that, we'll just talk about non-real estate stuff sometimes. I think our last episode, we spent first half of talking about the trades for young men. But
that's right, yeah.
Yeah, but I have a topic for you.
Okay.
So, as a fair warning to all of our listeners, if you're visiting us because you want to hear our latest take on whatever Clear Cooperation or NAR or MLS or something, we may end up there somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it always says which reminds me, that's why commissions are so high.
That's right. Yeah. All right. So here's the question, because I was talking about this with a friend recently, right? Who would you consider to be the transformative rock bands or popular music bands of our lifetime?
Transformative.
So the definition is they have to have somehow transformed the culture or transformed the music. Not just that they were popular, right? So for example, Michael Jackson, unbelievable artist, right? Really one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest of all time. But I don't think you could say he was transformative.
Okay.
Because he didn't really change anything. He was just amazing at what he did. Like Whitney Houston is not transformative, right?
Yeah.
Whereas I would argue Nirvana was transformative.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That was one of the ones in my head.
Yeah.
If I go back further than that, I would say something probably like Joy Division. Would be
Joy Division. Interesting.
Right? I mean, that kind of vibe, new wavy sound, right? That album was kind of seminal. And
where'd you grow up?
Everywhere, Rob. You know me. I've been all over the goddamn country. So.
Well, East Coast, West Coast?
Mostly West Coast, yeah.
Mostly West Coast. All right. So I guess what I'm curious is that we're both Gen X, right? So we're a child of the 80s. What'd you listen to growing up?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an 80s kid, right? So,
right.
For that thing, I mean, the first album I ever bought was Synchronicity.
Okay.
The Police, right?
Yep.
That was my first kind of album. But before that, it was typically Missing Persons, even mixed in with that kind of new wavy thing, like a Duran was coming out at the time.
Yeah, yeah,
Def Leppard was like on MTV all the time.
yeah.
The Police was probably one of my favorite bands growing up, right?
Okay, yeah.
And all those kind of, but then later on, I mean, U2, I got into very heavily too for a while.
Wow, you're really into like the mainstream pop.
Yeah, a little bit of like
rock.
Prince. I mean, I always liked a bit of more of that kind of music as well.
Okay.
What else?
Do you remember Columbia House?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, when you put a penny, you can get all those things. Yeah.
Like, have you ever told your kids about Columbia House?
I don't think so. No.
I think young people now would be amazed, right? So what Columbia House was, there used to be this thing, and I think they advertised in like teen mags and comic books and places like that. And I think it was something like you would get like 12 albums for a penny, right? And before they went to CDs, because we still remember the days of records and tapes, right? You would go pick out, like they would have an order form, right? In the magazine, you fill it out, pick your 10 or 12 albums, tape a penny, and then send it in. And what you didn't realize is that you were committing to buying an album from them every month.
Subscription.
It's a subscription.
Right? Subscription's been around forever, yeah. A bitch to cancel, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But
there's book clubs like that, right?
Yeah. I think I belong to that now with Kindle and whatever. But, it's just, I don't know. Like, I feel like that's something that, like, the streaming generation will never know. But I bring it up because I remember the first Columbia House order I made was in the heavy metal category, because in junior high I was into, quote, heavy metal. Mm-hmm. But what we consider heavy metal back then is amusing. So this is like early 80s, right? U2 was considered heavy metal.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I guess maybe, yeah. I mean, my first concert I ever went to, I think, was Van Halen, The Diver Down. But I went to Rush. I went to a Rush concert. That was freaking amazing. I remember. I went to a lot of concerts.
Okay, so you're kind of more mainstream. You're not like new wave, because for me it was going from metal in quotes, right, into new wave, into rap, because I grew up in New York.
Yeah.
Right. Like, what's your journey? Did you have something like that or no?
Yeah, I guess a little bit. I mean, then when the 90s came on, I think I was like one of the first ones that caught on to, in my friend group, like Nirvana and Pearl Jam and that kind of grunge thing. Yeah. Having some background in Seattle, there was that a bit, right? And then like everybody else, I was working as a stagehand, kind of doing sound and lighting with a company out of college. And we would have poker nights, and they would put on, you got to listen to this album. And it was, put it on. You could not even believe it. Just blew your mind how
this
crazy.
Nirvana.
No, this was NWA.
NWA. Oh, yeah.
That first album was like, what are they talking?
Oh, yeah.
Talking
Straight
about killing people.
Yeah,
killing people in the streets or whatever. And it just freaking, it's just had that head shaking thing to it. And we'd be like, what is this? And that just started a whole new thing for everybody. So I definitely, all that stuff was in my rotation as well.
Yeah.
And during that time, yeah.
So I think my list would go something like this, right? Again, I'm being a child of the 80s. I mean, Joy Division's interesting because I get why you say Joy Division, because I was heavy into new wave, but I don't know that they ever got popular enough.
No, not really. Right. But I mean, that's that album, that sound kind of gave birth to that, not electro, but I mean that
it is electro,
just vibe, that kind of vibe that came later,
that synth-driven new wave thing. Yeah. But I think for that,
but almost emo-ish, almost like emotional, the way he's saying,
right?
And,
but
it was a very.
It was
when you're saying transformative.
Popular.
No, but when you're saying transformative kind of thing, to me that was like everybody caught on. I was like also like older stuff, Bowie and Queen, and that type of stuff too.
I mean, I'm too young to think Bowie's being transformative, right? That's more the 70s,
right?
And I wasn't in this country, so I'm suggesting, all right, maybe not Joy Division. Why not? Wouldn't Depeche Mode be the more logical? because they were the most popular of the
no,
new
but
wave.
again, I don't think there's a Depeche Mode without Joy Division.
Sure, but there's no Joy Division without Kraftwerk.
Right. Well, that's Now
But
you're
you know what I
really
mean?
now you're really going into it.
Exactly. So it's like
Yeah.
when I think it's transformative, it's like the impact on the culture itself or the music genre itself. I want to say it was Depeche Mode that had the first like really big hit that made record companies want to put other new wave artists. Right.
Well, it depends on what it depends on what you want to call new wave. To me, what new wave to me meant was after the Beatles. Right.
After the Beatles, okay.
Right. So before that, you had the Police.
Right.
Right. You had other kind of British bands that broke through.
Sure.
But I mean, Depeche Mode was kind of way after that to me. Like, Pet Shop Boys. I don't know. Pet Shop Boys.
No, because the Police and Depeche Mode, Pet Shop, they were all releasing new music around the same time in the 80s.
I mean, Police. Like, I think their first album was like '79, though. Bro.
True, but what I mean is like Every Breath You Make, Every Breath You Take, which is Police's biggest hit.
Yeah.
Right. Was in the 80s.
Yes.
And that was
84,
sort of
83.
contemporaneous with like Erasure and Depeche Mode and The
Yeah.
Cure, right? But the Police, because they weren't synth driven, right? They were guitar, drum,
Yeah,
so they were
trio.
much more rock, pop.
Yes.
Whereas Depeche Mode, Erasure, Yaz, right? Like the synth driven, more Brit new wave thing, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I
that's
think
how I
Police
define
were
new wave.
more almost in a ska kind of thing with
Right.
their kind of reggae influence on the thing
Right.
too. Yeah,
They're a great
sure.
band. I love the Police, but it's. I don't think anyone would ever consider the Police new wave, right?
Well, no, I think they would. Yeah.
Who and why? That
Fucking
doesn't make
Google
any
it, man.
sense. They don't
Google it,
have
man.
a keyboard.
Google it, man. I don't think new wave is necessarily synth. I think it was the new wave of British artists after the Beatles. That's to me where the origin came from.
I don't know, man. So are you saying like the Clash? Where do you put the Clash?
Man,
That's not
great
new wave.
band too. Great band.
I know,
too.
but that's not new wave.
No. I understand what you're saying.
I think new wave is absolutely electronica.
Yeah, I don't agree, but I see where you're going.
Right. Because then you look at these British bands after the Beatles, like the Police, like, I mean, if we're talking after the Beatles, Led Zeppelin?
Well, weren't they around the kind of same time?
But like Beatles were 60s. They broke through in the 60s, right? And triggered the whole British invasion. Right.
Well, here's what it says here on the Google. It says new wave music is a broad genre that emerged from the punk rock scene.
Right.
Okay, that's not synth. In the late 70s and early 80s, characterized
I'm about
by
to
its
disagree with fucking
with
Wikipedia
Google.
right now. All right, go ahead.
Hold on. A broad genre that emerged from the punk rock scene in the late 70s and early 80s, characterized by its diverse influences of experimental approach. It incorporated elements of punk rock, pop music, art rock, synth pop, funk, and reggae. Often here it does say, often featuring synthesizers, quirky lyrics, and a distinctive visual style, right? So
Right.
it's very broad, as the thing says.
Yeah, but that's just wrong, is my point. Right?
Okay.
Like, no one who's like a new wave fan would accept like the Clash as new wave or PIL, as new wave. That's punk, right? And it's sort of like this Brit rock of the 80s kind of thing, Like,
Well, I mean, you
too.
can call again. You can talk. You can have it out with
the Googles.
Rolling Stone and Cream
Yeah.
magazine, and
Yeah.
you can decide what's up with that.
They're just wrong. But in any event, I think new wave was transformational. So I would maybe name like Depeche Mode, because for me they were like the first really popular new wave band. And then when you get into new wave,
Would you
which
call
I
like the
did-
Thompson Twins new wave?
Yeah, they definitely fit into the new
What about
wave
the
genre.
Eurythmics?
Eurythmics?
I mean, that's a very synth kind of group,
That's a
right?
really good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, but Depeche Mode, I think, is
I
like
would say
later.
early Eurythmics.
Later, Depeche Mode to me were much later than those two groups I just mentioned.
I don't
right?
think so.
Yeah,
Really?
for sure. Yeah.
When would the Eurythmics come out?
I mean, that's I think earlier than, or maybe around the same time, but
Yeah. Eurythmics come out. Yeah. British pop duo, debut album 1981, right?
yeah, I mean that's pretty
But-
early, right?
But they didn't make it big until Sweet Dreams, which was 1983. Right?
Okay, so put in Depeche Mode hit, right?
Depeche Mode come out. All right. Depeche Mode was 1981. Speak and Spell. All right.
When was their first hit?
First hit. Let's see. Depeche Mode. I want to say it was like People Are People. Oh, it's Just Can't Get Enough in 1981.
Yeah.
Right. Number 8 in UK singles chart. In other words, like Eurythmics maybe don't even get the chance without Depeche Mode. Right. Being a hit.
They came out at the same time, right? It's what their level of influence in the U.S.
Right.
Yeah.
But Eurythmics was never as popular as Depeche Mode. And they only and then you got Yaz. You can't right. But to me, I guess what I'm looking about is this, right? So think back to like high school.
Mm-hmm. Well, when did you graduate high school?
89.
Right. See, that's when I graduated college, right? So 85 was when I graduated.
Okay, so you're a generation before me.
Yeah.
Right? So you might be a little bit more like 70s, So this might be more college for you.
Yeah.
Right?
For
85,
sure.
86, Erasure, New Order, Depeche Mode. So, like, what I'm saying is, like, Yaz had a hit in 82 with Only You, but I think the way I'm thinking about it is if I went to, like, the cheerleaders, the popular crowd in high school, right? Because they were only listening to, like, top 40, right? So it's Madonna, Prince, all that, right? And we start talking new wave music. Most of them would not have heard of Eurythmics or Yaz. They would have heard of Depeche Mode. At least where I went to school, right?
Okay.
That's kind of what I mean, right? So, all right, so New Wave is transformational. Nirvana for sure, right? No question. Is Run DMC transformational?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, why? I agree, but why?
Well, I think they were the first one. I mean, that crossover hit with Aerosmith, right? I think really was a gateway to kind of rap in, coming out there. Before that, it might have been even just localized to the Bronx in a sense, right? I mean, but that kind of opened it up for everybody else to do it. And then you started hearing people adding raps in their song. There was more akin to that kind of spoken, thing than the lyrical styles they have now, which is amazing in hip hop, right?
But you didn't discover rap until NWA, is what it sounds like.
Correct.
So
no, I mean, I've heard. I mean, everybody loved fucking, the collaboration. What was it called?
Walk This Way.
Yeah, Walk This Way. Yeah. No, who didn't love that? Fucking song,
it was
right?
everywhere for a while.
Yeah.
Well, so what's interesting about that is West Coast, right?
Yeah.
East Coast, because I was in New York.
Yeah, well, that's an
after
origin.
Run DMC, the next transformative band for us was Public Enemy.
Yeah.
1989.
Yeah.
Right? And Spike Lee totally put them on the map.
Yeah.
And then NWA after Public Enemy, right?
Right.
Okay. So sticking to rap, who's next?
As far as
after NWA, right? Is transformative.
Okay, let me think about this.
I'll put one out there. See what you think.
Okay, all right.
I think it's Biggie.
Sure. Okay.
Right? For a very specific reason, because so after Public Enemy success, there was a few years, right, when like hip hop was all about like all this conscious rap, right? Because Public Enemy was making a hit with all this like political, real angry, right? And then NWA comes out and it's gangster rap.
Right.
Right. And then Biggie takes gangster rap and makes it into like materialism rap.
Right.
Right.
Well, you had a period there, I think like Tupac had more of it was a gangster, but also with a social message, right? It kind of mixed that a better, right? Yeah.
Just a tiny bit, right?
Yeah.
But Tupac, even like it was still talk about the like life in the ghetto, right? Whereas Biggie comes out talking about DKNY and, Prada bags and, champagne by the pool, the lifestyles of rich and famous. And then we haven't lost that since. Like,
it is kind of crazy.
So I would say Biggie. And then after that, I mean, I think rap's been sort of stale since then. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you've had different things like, stuff like the kind of lyrical melodies of more of a dance kind of thing like Nelly, right? I love that, Country Grammar album. I had that on repeat for years.
Yeah.
And then you have like the other stuff I didn't really like. It's kind of the like the Lil Wayne kind of mumble rap ish, right? The those kind of things.
I guess you could say that's transformative, except it's terrible transformation, I guess.
Yeah, no, I mean it's like all these evolutions of the things, and to me, like, I mean, You can't say again, West Coast is the best coast. It would be something like, I mean, Kendrick Lamar, right? I mean, the guy won a fucking Pulitzer Prize for his lyrics, right? I mean, kind of crazy
but
there.
that just shows how Pulitzer Prize has been devalued, and how wokeness has taken over everything.
Yeah, I'm not
Kendrick
sure.
is not very good.
Oh, what are you talking about,
He's
man?
not a very good rapper.
I just disagree.
All right, that's personal opinion, I suppose. But I'm stuck. We're old. It doesn't matter. My opinion doesn't matter.
And we're leaving out Kanye. I mean, before
But I don't think Kanye's transformative.
Oh man,
Like
I don't
he
know
didn't
about.
transform rap culture. Like he's a great artist.
I mean, and again, the guy's a nutcase, right? And hopefully he gets help. But I mean, what Kanye represents to me, the guy was more of a, and he says this himself, right? It's just transformative in the way of like what a. I mean, he's an artist, right? He's a designer.
Right. Sure.
He did not just do songs, but he did clothing and all this other stuff. So to me, he was transformative in the way that I think you would think of. You would think of like a rapper.
Right.
This is like, yeah, boy, and whatever. I mean, Kanye is freaking,
But
out
that's
of his
exactly
core.
my point, Greg. Is transformative to me means that you have transformed the scene, you have transformed the music genre and culture, such that you could tell like there are lots of people that follow after you. So grunge, for example, right? Like I know there was the Seattle grunge scene, and people could argue back and forth, but really, Nirvana hits, right? And the next thing's like, oh wow, Alice in Chains, and Pearl Jam, all these guys who maybe were contemporaneous with Nirvana, but they didn't get a chance until Nirvana hit, right? And they got so everyone's like, it's the grunge sound.
Yeah.
Okay. There's no Kanye sound.
Oh, I think most definitely there is, man. I mean, you
Who?
look at like Mike. I mean, it's just. Well, who else? I mean, so
Right.
Okay, so.
But that's right. Like he's an artist. He's unique. Is my
He's
point.
unique. Yeah. Okay.
There's
right.
no one like Kanye. Then did not then result in this legions of people who sound and talk like Kanye. Whereas gangster rap, like NWA, that hits gangster rap. Right.
Right.
Bunch of groups, like all these dudes, right? Biggie hits all these dudes just talking about Benzes and Bentleys and whatever, right? That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. I mean, I guess he was called kind of a backpack rapper because he's kind of this, in a sense, a geeky guy back then. But no, he is a singular artist.
Singular
for sure.
artist, correct.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I'm not taking anything away from Kanye. I'm saying like he didn't transform. Whereas
This
I would
Kanye
argue,
conversation is basically lost half the audience here. So just
we've lost all the audience, which is fine, and we're gonna find out how many people that listen to us are just Gen Xers.
Yeah, and then
like us.
I think Jay-Z again. I think is a good thing. Is somewhere in there and after the Biggie
But
kind of thing.
what did he transform? That's a really good example. Jay-Z, another phenomenal rapper, great artist. Right?
Again, I look at these guys transforming, and again, and this goes back to Kanye, but I do get your point of like these are artists that go beyond the art. I mean, he became the president of Def Jam, right? He aspired to do other bigger things, more collaborations with maybe a mainstream thing than not, right? But
yeah,
yeah.
I guess I'm just trying to think. And so this is one of my challenges is this one, Eminem.
right, yeah.
I don't think he's transformative. He's a singular artist, right? He's amazing. He might be top 5, like he's in a conversation of greatest of all time. But it isn't as if Eminem comes out and then we see legions of other people that are like copying his style or trying to be like him. We don't see legions of white rappers. Like we just don't, right?
Yeah, I mean, you see white rappers, and maybe you could say it on that thing, but I mean, nothing. Nothing compares
Right?
to that guy. Yeah,
Right. But it's, again, I just liken it to NWA, Nirvana, Public Enemy.
Right.
They did not spawn, this thing, right?
Yeah.
All right. What about over on rock?
God, it's like the rock bands have been tough to kind of thing. I think, the one that I think the band that brought rock back was basically Foo Fighters after the death of then it became more of I remember seeing an interview with David Grohl. He says, well, we just became the de facto, we need a rock band. What rock band is out there that has hits? And it was the Foo Fighters, right?
Mm-hmm.
So transformative, I don't know. I mean, that's
But
a
let's
tough
go back.
thing, right?
Let's go back to
Okay.
the 80s, right?
Right.
So you have the 70s, right? And then you have whatever classic rock of the 70s. I don't even know CCR, John Fogerty. Like I don't even know who the rock bands of the 70s were. Led Zeppelin, whatever.
Right.
And then clearly the biggest thing in
Well, Guns N' Roses, man, were freaking huge, right?
in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
And Guns N' Roses really.
I mean, you had a lot of that hairband thing, which
I was just gonna say that, right?
Right, yeah. So you had the Bon Jovis, the
Right.
Poisons,
Right.
the who was it guy? Sweet Pie, Cherry Pie, those guys.
Warrant, right.
Warrant, right? Yeah, those kind of that whole
literally-
scene. Rat, right?
Dude,
all that shit. Yeah.
I literally have a playlist on Spotify called Guilty Pleasures.
Yeah.
But here's the interesting thing. To me, the hair metal thing came out of heavy metal.
Sure.
And in the 80s, Def Leppard was considered heavy metal,
Yeah, for
right?
sure. Yeah.
Like, I remember Columbia House, right? Like, if you want to be hardcore, like, real, like, oh, you might be flirting with Satan, we're talking Judas Priest.
Yeah, well, Ozzy Osbourne, right? That
And
was a
Ozzy's the
big-
original, the OG of all that.
Yeah.
And then hair metal hits the scene and, like,
Yeah.
takes away from that. And it's like, who's the transformative hair metal band? Because it's not GNR. GNR came along a little bit later.
Yeah. I guess as far as like just pop, I mean, what they basically transported the hair metal into pop was Bon Jovi, wasn't it?
Was it Bon Jovi or was it Motley Crue?
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah. I mean, I think probably Motley Crue had a harder edge than Bon Jovi for sure.
Yeah.
Because they had all the, I mean, even though they never really played at it, but it was like a lot of these, pentagrams and things like that.
And
which
they
was
they were trying to copy Kiss when they first came out. They had makeup.
Yeah.
Remember?
Well, everybody had a little bit of makeup, right?
No, it was them and Kiss.
Twisted Sister, man. What are you talking about? That
But
guy,
Twisted Sister, because he was trying to do this like tranny thing, right?
I don't know if I would call it that, but
All right, Motley Crue debut album 1981, Bon Jovi debut album 1984. So Motley Crue precedes.
right.
I think it might be Crue. I think it might be Motley Crue.
Okay.
Right? So maybe we have to call them the transformative.
I just never, I just didn't really ever think they had any great, the songs from Motley Crue weren't.
Dude, come on. Home Sweet Home is a fucking classic.
A ballad? You want to talk about a hard rock band and the first thing you're going to point out is a ballad. No, sorry.
Sorry, I mean, it's just, Too Fast for Love wasn't
But,
bad.
I mean,
That was
Vince
the first
Neil
hit.
as a front man? Come on, man. No.
Well, I'm not saying like Motley Crue now, just saying like back in the 80s, like all the girls were so into him. It was crazy,
Yeah. This episode is brought to you by our sponsor, Cotality. CoreLogic is now Cotality. Same trusted technology and data, just with a new name that reflects their mission to unify property professionals, strengthen industry relationships, and drive innovation globally. Cotality powers tools you already know and love, like Matrix, the gold standard for MLS systems. There's one home for agents who want to give their clients a more personalized collaboration experience. MLS Touch keeps you connected to the MLS no matter where you are. Realist gives you the insights to stand out as the local expert and tools to fill your funnel with high-value leads. The new One Homeowner platform keeps you top of mind and delivers value long after the deal is done. Learn more at Cotality.com, and if your MLS is powered by Cotality, don't miss Camp Cotality for MLS Staff and Leadership this June. It's the perfect place to connect, learn, and see what's next. Our thanks to Cotality for sponsoring Industry Relations.
So Motley Crue, hair metal, right, which dominates the 80s, including Bon
a lot.
Jovi, including Warrant, White Lion, Rat.
80s were like, 80s were, I don't know about dominating. I mean, you had hair metal, you had Michael Jackson, that scene, you had Madonna, you had Prince. I mean,
Sure.
that's why I think we all love the 80s still so much. It's like there was
Sure.
so much to kind of draw
It
from,
was,
for sure.
but for rock, I think it was dominated by hair metal.
Okay.
Like, no, you're right. Michael Jackson, Madonna, Prince, some of the greats, right? But I think we would all consider them to be pop. Rock, I think, was dominated hair metal. So, which then leads me to my next transformative band. All right, in my opinion, Metallica.
Sure.
Dude, the first time I heard Metallica, I was like, what is this?
Well, they had it was, it was never death metal, right? Because they also
No.
had, what was the other one? Motorhead, right? Was the British thing with Lemmy.
Yeah.
And then there was Megadeth. I mean, there was like
Yeah.
you had the feeling this was like this. Dun-dun-dun,
Yeah.
dun-dun-dun-dun,
There was a group, right?
just like the speed metal is what they would call a little bit of it, right?
Wasp, there were a group of them. Anthrax,
Pantera.
right? Pantera, but
Yeah.
Metallica was
Yeah, for sure.
the transformer,
Right.
Because after them, it's when we started hearing about Pantera and Motorhead and all those guys. And I would argue it's the combination Nirvana and Metallica that killed hair metal.
Right. I mean, grunge just kind of
Right.
I remember seeing this skit from Bill Burr, the comedian. He's like,
Yeah.
he was into the hair metal stuff. And then when Nirvana came out, he's like, oh, this is kind of this earnest, moody stuff. And I kind of like my hair metal stuff. And like, okay, hopefully they go away.
Right.
And then they had another hit. And like, oh, these grunge guys are here to stay. They ruined the whole party, right?
They did ruin the party because that was a funny thing. So grunge comes out and, they still had long hair, but they were dressed in street clothes. They were dressed like regular people, whereas the hair metal guys were in tights and fucking
Makeup
spangles and,
hairspray.
like makeup, right, hairspray, and it just looked, after them, everything just looked cheesy and corny.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't be down with that.
Yeah.
So if you're wearing makeup, you're not a rock band. After that.
And I'll tell you, you talked about having like guilty pleasures, right? So, I'll admit this online here.
Yeah.
But my kind of guilty pleasures were like, and still are to a sense, right? Is, I may have said this before, are kind of like, I just love chick singers, right?
Chick singers?
Yeah, like, you know,
interesting. Who's your favorite?
God, right now, I mean, I really love the last. Maggie Rogers is a really great example of that. Yeah.
Okay.
But back then, it would be like Tori Amos. It would be like Paula Cole. I mean, I'm telling you, like those are like some go-tos sometimes.
Okay.
Who else? And then the other stuff like a Janet Jackson. I mean, just. Girl singers, basically. I've always had an affinity towards.
This is an interesting thing, girl singers, which leads me to the next fucking boomer Gen X topic, right? It sounds everyone you've named is like a female acoustic singer-songwriter.
Oh, Natalie Merchant, too. God, 10,000 Maniacs were a great band, yeah.
Right. Here's what's interesting. None of them would be considered divas.
Right. Okay. I mean, I love me some Mariah Carey, and I think she's a.
I was just
diva.
gonna say,
Yeah.
but you said girl
I
singers.
like I like Beyonce too. I mean.
Okay, but you didn't mention Whitney Houston,
Oh, I love Whitney Houston, sure.
right?
Absolutely.
Or Mariah. Or
Yeah. No. I. Those are all on the list, baby. Those are all.
okay,
on the,
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you
for
just
sure.
like female singers.
Yes.
Okay, rank them for me. Greatest of all time.
The greatest singer.
Greatest female singer of all time.
Jesus.
And why is it Aretha?
Yeah. No. I mean Diana Reeves. I love that kind of shit too. Back in the day.
Yeah.
You could go back to freaking Ellis Fitzgerald, right? You could go back to what's it? Lady Sings
But
the
Ella's
Blues.
not my favorite.
No.
I think it's Aretha.
Aretha, sure, but I mean, I'm talking more about that torch singer, right? That's
Torch singers. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean that kind of vibe, right? If you're gonna say, I mean, Tori Amos, Paula Cole are not
No,
are
they're
not
divas.
Aretha's.
Yeah,
or
they're not
anything,
Aretha.
right?
They're not
so
Whitney.
There's right. God,
They're not
why am I
Celine.
not remember Strange Fruit? Lady Sings the Blues. What's her name? Way back in the day, blues singer.
She's
God,
like
how can I-
France, black jazz singer.
Hold on.
It's really
I'm gonna.
crazy.
I can't believe I don't remember her name.
Yeah, I can't believe I can't remember her name. Her name literally comes out in a Fuji song.
Yeah. Billie Holiday, for Christ's
There you
sake,
go.
how do we not remember that? Beautiful voice.
Sure.
Barbara Streisand isn't that kind of like older kind of thing, right?
I don't know if I would classify Barbara as a torch singer.
Well, is she a rock singer?
I mean,
She's like American standards
like
and
Celine,
shit, right? Okay, Celine, right?
Right? I mean,
not so
a
much in
rock
the Celine.
singer, but not a torch singer either.
Yeah, yeah, but there's that genre of all those
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
things,
yeah,
right? I
yeah.
mean,
You know what you would be into? I would suggest you check out some contemporary French jazz.
okay,
Yeah. What's her name? Stacey Kent, for
okay,
example. I think you'll talk about that torchy thing. I think you might get into that.
okay.
All right. All right. So hair metal.
Lots of like revealings here. I mean, what are some? I mean, you like later on though. To me, I got more into like jazz. Like, I mean, I think people who know me know me. I'm a big
Yeah.
Coltrane fan and Thelonious Monk and
Yeah.
and those kind of West Coast jazz scene. I have a ton of albums on that. And then
Jazz is the one genre I just can't get into.
yeah,
I've tried. I've tried Coltrane. I've tried. And what I realized, maybe it's just me.
Miles Davis.
Yeah, Miles Davis. Like, it's like I just can't. But then I went to New Orleans on some real estate conference. It was probably some NAR event, and went to one
Shocking.
of those jazz,
Preservation,
cafes at 2:00 in the morning.
Preservation
or whatever.
Hall. Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And then I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever heard.
Ragtime. Yeah.
So I think maybe the issue is for me, jazz has to be live.
Okay.
And it has to be that extemporaneous, that, do you know what I mean? Where they're
Yeah, no,
vibing
it's
off, they don't have sheet music, there's not
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
song. That shit is amazing.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like Miles Davis, some kind of blue, whatever, like, I'm like, all right, See, are you familiar with Snarky Puppy?
No, I've
My
heard
man,
that name before.
If you like jazz, you need to check out Snarky Puppy.
Okay.
Right. There's something amazing. Like, that's a show I would actually go see if they ever came out west, which
Yeah.
I don't think they do. All right. Yeah, your tastes are almost as eclectic as mine.
Yeah, I'm not sure anybody's tastes are gonna be as eclectic as yours.
Sonny complains all the time. We're driving. She's like, "What is this?" Like, it'll go from
I
Alanis Morissette to NWA to
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's been it's been people that have influenced me. Like, I remember out of college, and I started just started making some money with my first real estate software company, Iris, and I had a roommate. His name was Nick Jamakosian, and he was just into Miles Davis. He was a Miles freak, and when we had this bookcase, and he had CDs. It was 2 shelves, a bookcase of nothing but Miles Davis. And, he would listen to like some of the later Miles stuff where it was like Bitches Brew, where he was really exploring like minimalism, where, it'd be like, boop. And then a minute later, boop, boop. And then, just like jungle drums in the fucking background. And it used to drive me fucking crazy. I'd be around the house trying to relax, and he just, he's pouring his tea and he's walking around and this fucking music's going on. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And then later on, I moved out, he moved out, and I got my own place. I'm like, man, I miss that music. So it was it's just that was kind of my intro as far as I guess I got through from I went from Miles to Coltrane because he was in the quintet for a while.
Yeah.
And then just kind of expanded from there for sure.
That reminds me of, like, this is something that my kids, your kids, like our kids' generation will never know, I think. Remember, like, going to like a girl's place for the first time, like after a first date or second date or whatever, and then looking at her music collection
And just judging.
and then like making evaluations based on what you're seeing. You know what I mean? That's never going to happen again, right? Because now it's all whatever. Spotify.
Well, you can look at their playlist, right? For sure, right? I mean, I remember first dating Jen, and she told me her favorite band was Air Supply, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm not. This is. I want some cool chick that's into some rando shit I've never heard of, like
What's
Air
Air
Supply.
Supply? They're a
God.
phenomenal band.
Oh, Jesus.
It just says Jen's a romantic. That's all.
Oh man, Jesus.
Dude, I went through an Air Supply phase.
Oh my god.
It's like going through the Beach Boys phase.
Beach Boys is great. Beatles, of course. I mean, some of those classic. It's like I love nothing more than a Sunday morning turning on the Beatles Essentials playlist on Apple Music or something, man.
Yeah,
love
in
that.
your VW Bug, that's from the same era. Yeah, the '60s. I don't know. In any event, they're never gonna have that experience, or even going over to a buddy's house and be like, "Look
Well,
at
you
this
know, I
CD
think that
collection."
similar experience would be what memes they're into now, right? Do they
Okay.
find the same things that are funny that you do, right? So,
Right.
I didn't know this, but I guess you can look on other people's like who they follow on Instagram.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
I don't even know how to do this, but I guess you can go to, if you follow them, you can go to somebody's profile and see who they follow, right? So I was at a dinner once, some industry event, and hey, what's your what's your Instagram thing? I gave my Instagram thing, and it was a woman, and she's just starting going through my thing, like it's like I'm like, is she looking through like my who I follow? Because I follow like I would say a lot of fitness models on the feed, right?
God bless.
Like, yeah. And other random kind of things as well. Yeah, so it's like she probably thinks I'm some sort of degenerate or something on there or whatever. But
Yeah. If she looked at mine, I think most of my followers are like shooting instructors and gun companies.
Yeah,
so
exactly. Yeah, yeah. It's mostly VW buses and Volkswagens.
Yeah.
Anything to do with that, and then others. Yeah.
So maybe there. I don't know. It's interesting, but because you could get into some really cool conversations.
Yeah. Well, it's
Like
weird
looking at the
because
CD collections, like explain this Janet Jackson album here.
yeah. Right. Yeah. That's
It's
a little
like, well-
outlier. That's an outlier, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I love this one song, is what she
Yeah,
would
yeah.
say, right?
Or I would like some girl could go to your place and be like, so Tori Amos and Alanis, like explain, Greg. Are you gay? Without
Yeah,
telling
exactly,
me?
exactly.
You're like, no. Like I just really
No, yeah, no. I always kind of like think of like all the algorithms. Whatever I'm on, I'm like a 5-year-old gay man or something like that. Right? that's my taste here. I mean, it's nowadays like with my sons, like Cole has gotten into music, but he's gone a whole complete direction from I have with more electronica stuff, like a
he's
Porter
into, like-
Robinson.
Yeah.
And almost like that kind of thing. But Toby shares a lot of the same music taste I do, right? So, and then Hope, she's just not. She might name one or two songs, but music is not really a big part of her life. She's more of an artist and drawing.
Don't you
and
think
stuff.
that's generally the case for women, though?
Well, I don't know. Maybe
I don't remember.
I don't know. I've a lot of women in my life that are really just love music, right? Dance music, rap. I mean, all sorts of type of music. So I wouldn't generalize like that.
No, I would say. So here's what I mean. Like, okay, so maybe this is an '80s thing, right? Maybe modern high schools aren't like this at all, right? But do you remember in high school you used to have these like groups, the jocks, the nerds, the drama kids, the dirt bags, right?
Yeah.
And each of us had a music.
Yeah.
Like the drama kids were all into Rush and Styx. I don't know why. My high school. The dirt bags were all into heavy metal, right? The jocks were all into like hard rock, Bon Jovi stuff, right? You know what I mean? Like, and the nerds were all into new wave. Okay. Like, what I remember is there were never any girls in any of these like subgenre groups. Right? Girls are just like they were into like top 40. And then whatever is like, or they like dancing or something, or they like, but they weren't like, I can't remember a single girl who's like, I'm really into metal. Right? Tell me about Judas Priest and like Metallica and Wasp. Like I can't remember that. Same thing with New Wave. Right? It was all dudes.
Yeah, I mean, again, we really didn't get into that until high school. Those kind of cliques, as you're talking about, right? So, when I was in ninth and 10th grade, I spent in Texas, in San Antonio, and I went to two different high schools in ninth grade, and then there you basically had the kickers, as they called them, which is the shit kickers, the guys in the boots, and then you had the stoners,
right?
And then you had the normal people, right? So you were. And the stoners were into some kind of music, and obviously the kickers were into other kind of music, right?
Right.
But it wasn't until I moved to California, right? And and this is why I'm saying it's different in my experience, because music was a very close related to fashion. right?
Yes.
So the heavy metal guys would, they
Yes.
had to outlaw spikes
Yes.
and leather
Yes.
jackets.
Yes.
The girls would dress that way too because they were rocker chicks, right?
Okay. Yep.
There's famously in Fast Time with Ridgemont High, like the Pat Benatar look, right? That was a look.
I remember
some
that,
say.
yep.
The new wave girls were
Yep.
all, big hair up and neon dressing in a sense, right? They had
A lot of
ours.
Benetton.
Yeah, a lot of exactly. A lot of there was in our place there was a mod group, the Mods they would call themselves, more British rock with
Okay.
the long trench coats and the Who kind of like
Okay. Yeah.
bullseye. They would
Yeah.
dress like that and try to ride. One had a scooter and they'd all of them would hang around like in a scooter trying to look kind of mod chic. And then a country. There'd be some people, not a lot in
You
California.
had country kids in California?
Maybe a couple, right? Maybe a couple.
That was the one genre that we did not have. I would
yeah.
think San Antonio.
And
sure.
yeah, for sure, the Kickers is what that was the kind of genre there. So, in a case, maybe it wasn't that. Maybe I wasn't quite asking. I know I wasn't asking any girls at that point, but they were, to me. It was like you were part of that group because of how you dressed. Now, if I went and asked them, do you listen to to Motley Crue? That was another kind of fashion thing too. Rocker girls. Oh man, the rocker girls dressed provocative. We really love the rocker girls the way they dressed, right?
Yeah.
So, but I don't know if I would go into them. They would just probably they would listen to what their boyfriends were listening to.
That's exactly my point, right? So the part of this is you're exactly, at least in the 80s. I'm super curious. We should get Cole and Eli on to talk about this. Do those exist in high schools in 2025, right? Because a big part of it is you're young, you come to high school for the first time, and you're trying to find your identity.
Yeah.
Where do I fit in? And a big part of the identity was driven by music, which then dictated fashion, which then dictated a bunch of other things too, right? That it was unacceptable, right? If you're into new wave, right? You hang out the new wave clique, which I did a lot. It was unacceptable to be into metal.
Right. Yeah, you were. This is your tribe, and you were
Correct.
going over now.
You're almost like a traitor because you're if you
yeah.
showed up with an Iron Maiden concert T-shirt, you would get excluded from your new wave tribe. Same thing though. If you're the metalhead, right, and you're yeah, man, I really like rap.
I went to a Joe Jackson concert. It was great.
So I think that's a huge part of, at least for our experience. I wonder if that happens today.
I don't know if it's. I mean, it's centralized around music. It was music for sure for us.
Right.
My best friend Dave Rifkin, who's in the industry, we kind of bonded over music, really.
Right.
So yeah.
Because that's how you start talking to other people. You
Yeah.
know, I remember making friends because again, 80s thing, the folders, the binders,
Yeah.
and everyone would write on them and stuff and draw on them. So I saw this guy is has the Cure on his binder. I'm oh, you like the Cure? And they
Cure,
get to talking.
Yeah.
You know?
How many Van Halen logos did you write on a peachy or try to kind of do that? with
Yeah, shit like that, right? So what do they do now? Everyone just has phones.
Yeah,
so
no,
how
they're
would you?
I mean, they're their own little worlds, man. I mean, it's for them to pick up their heads. It's yeah.
So is it just online, Discovery online?
Oh,
it
for sure,
must be.
yeah.
God, that sucks. We got to get rid of social media and phones.
Okay, done. I'm with
Force the kids, at least for kids. Force the kids back into high school and trying to find your tribe by music and fashion and.
you. Yeah, I mean, I'm not worried about. I think the worm's going to turn here. It's this is what it is now, and it's going to have a peak and have a decline, and something new will come up, right?
Yeah. So what's interesting about it is since the 2000s or so, I feel like music has become very staid. Right. It's something we might have talked about briefly, right? So I was asked this question by a friend who's significantly younger. He's millennial, right? It's when you were in high school, what was classic rock?
Right.
What did the classic rock stations play?
Yeah.
What did the classic rock stations play when you were in high school in the 80s?
Oh yeah, it would be CCR, right? It would be Neil Young. It would be
Beatles.
Yeah, sure.
Led Zeppelin, right?
Yeah.
Which is only 10 years old.
I know. Yeah. It's
right?
Yeah.
Whereas classic rock now, they're not playing Backstreet.
Right.
You know
no,
what I
it's a genre that had something, right, and maybe it went to a certain year, but also they'll weave in things that were really kind of influenced by that kind of thing too, right? So
what I'm saying though is like music really hasn't changed that much since, I don't know, 2000. Like I feel like I could listen to a song from 2005, right? And I wouldn't know that it's from 20 years ago. Because music of 2025 sounds a lot like music of 2005.
yeah, there hasn't been like a grunge moment for sure,
No.
right? Yeah.
Or even like rappers today, they don't sound dramatically different than, rappers of the 90s,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean,
So things
but
have become...
I try to like listen to nothing, but I try to listen to a lot of new music, right? So
Me too.
I again going back to chick singers, I'll listen to Ariana Grande and the new. I'm not much into Taylor Swift though. I've listened to a couple of her albums.
Same.
But I also like Harry Styles is. That one album he had a few summers ago, was just I have that on repeat. I mean, there's some catchy songs out there. Even now, I'll listen to some Sabrina Carpenter, shit that's kind of poppy and fun.
Okay.
And then everybody now is into. I've never been into country at all.
Yeah.
Right. So, but like I was driving around with my buddy Eddie, and he was talking about Morgan Wallen.
Yeah.
He played a couple, and I recognize some of the songs because they play them all the time, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not familiar with him as an artist. Yeah, but it's not. There's nothing. When is the next kind of like, what is it? Chaperone. That's a pretty fun album.
Here's what I'm saying. Like, is there a sound that you hear and you go, oh, that's 2010s music?
No.
Like the concept of the decades of music, I feel like have gone since the 90s, right? Whereas like we could listen to
the only way you could tell is just the artist, right? Oh,
and that's if you know,
yeah,
who
the artist is.
a Biggie, that's 90s rap,
Yeah.
right? But it doesn't sound that dramatically different than, I don't know, whatever is happening now. Versus, I think we could absolutely tell 60s music sounds completely different than 70s music. Sounds completely different than 80s music.
Yeah, I don't know completely, but there's for sure.
But you could
there's
tell,
differences.
That's 70s. Oh, that's 80s, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
and I
that's
think,
90s.
but I think a lot of times that has to do with Rob is like also the technology,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you can
Yeah.
just it's a yeah.
Yeah. So I think that it's quite interesting. Okay, so what is that breakthrough now, right? Where like our kids will be able to hear something like, oh, that's such a 2000 sound, or oh, that's a 2020s music,
Yeah.
right? Because of the technology, whatever. And here we are in 2050, and now we're having
Yeah.
music directly beamed into our heads. I don't even know, right? It's just...
Well, I guess to me, like, what do we have back in the day? Like Moby would be probably the first kind of producer of like electronica in a way. I mean, again, you could go back to Kraftwerk if you want to go there, but I mean, I think of the stuff when I'm in my car with Cole. This is just random beats and boop boop beep up, and some melody over that. I mean that kind of music is I'm so unfamiliar with. I couldn't tell you. Yeah. Maybe that's a kind of a newer thing because.
Well, I mean, there was the whole growth of like EDM, right?
Yeah.
There were some pioneers in that, like the Paul Oakenfolds and the Tiestos and Armin van Buuren and all those guys, But I don't know. Interesting. I've learned a lot about you during this non-real estate.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go put on Little Earthquakes right after this, so it's going to be really great.
Seriously, check out contemporary French jazz.
Okay, all right.
You know what else would be worth if you like female singers, right? There's this like group of I guess newer Jamaican reggae singers.
Oh wow! Okay, all right, okay.
And I think you might. I'm thinking specifically like Savannah and Lila Ike. I think is how you say her name. Beautiful voices, really cool new sound. I think you might enjoy it. We'll have to talk about that.
I'm making notes here, Rob. I'm making
all right.
notes.
I could text them to you as well.
Yeah.
So, in any event, if you stuck with us through this entire thing, I'm first of all, I'm amazed. Thank you for doing that. Second, that means you're probably Gen X like us. We'd love to know kind of, what your favorite artists, growing up were. And, what you consider to be sort of the transformational music artists, of the last, we'll call it 40 years. How about that? And as I leave, I have to point this out. Big Papa.
Yeah.
Amazing song.
Yeah.
Right. Huge hit. Is 30 years old.
Oh my God. Thank you for that. Jesus. I wish I had the rights for that, because that'd be the play out on this podcast, right?
Let that sink in. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.